yours over here. Right here. Okay. Okay. In Winfield's earlier days, Winfield, Mom, you know where?
Just a little louder.
Louder, James. Okay. Let's see if I can scream a little louder. In Winfield's earlier days, the neighborhood or mom-and-pop grocery stores were scattered all over the residential areas here in Winfield.
Jane, can you speak up just a little
We
more?
can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Come up here where there's a chair.
She's not the only one.
And they were usually owned and operated by a husband and wife. The era of these stores was from approximately 1880 to 1960, varied a little bit. After having at least 130 stores in the 1920s, there were 51 stores by 1934. And by the 1950s, there were around 45 grocery stores. And these figures came from information in the archives here at the museum. You'd be amazed at what you can find in the archives. There's interesting stuff. Okay. Let me take care of the first one. In the early 1913, according to another Courier article, Winfield merchants organized a delivery service. 8 wagons manned by 8 drivers, get these figures, and sometimes helpers, covered the 8 town routes 4 times daily. Isn't that amazing? They had 8 drivers, and sometimes helpers, and they covered their 8 town routes 4 times daily, just whenever somebody had ordered needed to be delivered. Horses or mules pulled the delivery wagons. Every sort of item was delivered. It was full of bread to something much larger and awkward, perhaps. Okay, and this is according to Mrs. C.T. Rawls of she lived over here at 922 Mansfield, around the corner of that big, beautiful yellow house, white trim. That's where she lived. And her father and brother owned and operated that delivery service. Their names were, the father was David Carter, and the son was Hawkins, and that was Mrs. Rawls' brother. Okay. And there's a photo of Mrs. Rawls that was in the Courier in the 1950s, I think it was, and her dachshund Joe. Cute, huh? And her husband, Dr. Rawls, was served Winfield for many years. He was a medical doctor here. And I guess that's about all for that. Okay. Laura Unger and Barbara Story were granddaughters of the Rawls, Dr. and Mrs. Rawls. And Laura's going to talk just for a minute.
The delivery service you saw was started by my great-grandfather, D.L. Carter. And this is a picture in Coffeyville, Kansas, in the museum of the delivery service wagons that he and his sons had in Coffeyville. So they were in Coffeyville and Winfield. Oh, yes, my mom and Barbara, my sister, were over in Coffeyville for other things, and we decided to go through the museum, looking around. Oh my goodness, there's a picture on the wall, Mom. I think it's your great-grandfather, and he's located right here on this side of the picture in the buggy, and these are 12 of the delivery wagons. So
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
She said she'd make a copy of that for the museum.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Is up here?
Yeah, sure. I thought that was really interesting. Let's see. Why were there so many grocery stores back then? Remember, there weren't any cars at the beginning of that period. And then when cars did become available, it was on a limited basis, and you sometimes had to wait a long time to get a car. And if the family did get a car, usually the husband drove it to work. So, neighborhood grocery stores made it possible for the women and their children to walk to the store and buy whatever they needed. Or she could just send her older kids to buy a loaf of bread or some lunch meat or whatever. And the way a lot of the businesses then had let people buy on credit, and otherwise they had a page in a book there somewhere. And so then they keep track of what the family owed, and at the end of the month, they would generally pay off their debt, start all over the next month then. Now, it probably didn't work every time, but hopefully most of the time anyway. Let's see. Some stores did deliver groceries on a regular amount, and so that was nice if people needed that. I was able to talk with a few people whose parents or grandparents owned and operated one of these mom and pop stores here in Winfield. First one that I interviewed was Ruth Quisenberry Artango. She and her, she lives here still, but she remembers many hours spent in Quisenberry Food Market at 6th and Loomis. The business was first owned by her grandparents, Hubert and Mina Quisenberry, and then later by her parents, Dylan and Iva Quisenberry. Ruth recalled that they bought bread for 15 cents a loaf from Earl Hatterberg's bakery. And she went, and then they sold it at the store. And then she went with one of her parents to a farm to buy eggs. When they got back, Ruth's job was to handle the eggs. Her dad would make large amounts of potato salad to sell in the store. And another clear memory for her was the long tray of hot dogs that was displayed in the meat case. And Ruth got hungry during the day. She could help herself to a hot dog, raw. So, and the family's dog, Duffy, stayed at the store 24 hours a day, she said. He stayed at night to scare off possible intruders. So, Ruth can't remember the exact years her parents operated the store, but she thinks it was from 1926 to 1956 or 57, something like that. A few of those she remembers working there as sappers and carry-out boys were Bruce Wells, Delbert Waldorf, Bobby Adler, and Phil Jarvis. Are any of them here today? Stand up. Do you have anything you would say about the experiences?
Any memories about it, that she said?
Yes. Any memories you have of working there?
Well, one is, I was trying to think of the butcher's name.
Well, there's reefer gravel
Yeah.
and bottle, Wayne Grant.
I can't remember who it was at the time, but they would always smoke chicken legs. And I remember on break of going and getting a chicken leg and eating it. One of my main responsibilities there was to sort pop bottles. We had pop bottles all over the place. So I would put them in the wooden crates, my brand and stuff like that. But I enjoyed it.
That sounds good.
No, I didn't candle it. That was above my pay grade.
Still, a chicken leg's better than a hot dog, I think.
Yes. And this is the store, and look at the card, you can kind of tell the time.
May I interject for 1 second, please?
Yeah.
This is Mr. Quisenberry, where are you? Oh, it's okay. That's my house now. I'd love to have some old pictures of it.
Oh, my God.
Love to.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. There's an old chalkboard upstairs that was integrated to cover up an old fold-down stairway that chalkboard would write specials on. Still up there, yeah.
Who was upstairs when it was a grocery store?
I don't think anything, just storage.
Storage.
Yeah.
It was just storage.
But the tile, the original tile for the butcher shop is still in there.
Yeah, down in,
Yeah.
tile about 5 feet up, still there.
Okay, interesting. Okay, now let's move on to the Woods, or the D&J Market. Go ahead, by both names apparently.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like today. I'm sure it was much more attractive in its day.
Yes.
And Steve Wood has many memories of the time spent at the D&J Market at 922 East 11th that was owned by his parents, Dwayne and Joanne Wood. So you can figure out where they got D&J, Dwayne and Joanne. Okay, and some material, okay. In so many ways I grew up there, he said recently when I talked to him. I inventoried soft drink bottles, unloaded trucks, I swept sawdust on the butcher shop floor. I watched my dad artfully sketch sale signs on butcher paper with brightly colored markers. And Steve remembers stocking shelves with number 303 cans of vegetables. And Phil, you'll register with this. He filled the Coke machine with Coke, Pepsi, 7-Up, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, root beer, Fanta, Shasta, apple beer, and Pomac. Okay, Round was 49 cents a pound, and Folger's coffee was $1.29 a can, excuse me. He said his dad made chili with and without beans that was sold for a short time. Okay. He said, I sat groceries and managed to stand for 8-hour shifts at the cash register. I pedaled my bike to deliver orders and drove the delivery truck on ice to make deliveries, he recalled. And I sold fireworks out front ahead of the 4th of July. Is Carlene Brown here by any chance?
Back there.
She is, okay. She contacted me after the article in the paper and said she had more information about that store. I said, well, come Monday and tell us about it.
Well, Dwayne's parents owned a store on 15th Street next to the railroad track.
Yep.
I don't remember, 700-800 block. And then Dwayne ran that store after his parents retired. And it's now a home, I don't know who lives there, but, shops there a lot. As a child, that was the closest grocery store.
So the parent store,
Was on 15th Street.
now, did you say this is the building that they
No,
have?
that is not the building. They had another building that is now a home. It was right where 15th curve with the railroad track.
Right next to the 700 block, 700 block.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Appreciate you adding that to the conversation.
Did you know that that was the original Manning Dance House?
Pardon me?
This was the original Manning Dance House?
Okay.
Manning.
That
That's
was
still
a
like that.
grocery store before Dwayne ran it, but I don't remember who it was.
Yes.
Hessman's. Hessman's.
Nashman's.
Hessman Grocery.
I'm Carl Martin, and this is an important picture for me because Mary Lou and I came here when I became a member of the faculty and staff at Southwestern College, and we patronized this grocery store all the time. Actually, we became friends with Dwayne and Joanne and have had connections through the years. It's an example. We came in as newcomers, but we were quickly accepted by D&J Market. I remember very good times there with them and became personal friends with them.
Thanks, that's interesting. Okay, next one here. That was inside of the wood store, you know, some of the grocery counters
Is that the one on 15th?
on 11th.
It says Woods is
It says Woods.
Okay. Put the ring. Okay, this is, was on the next half of this store we're gonna talk about. Jim Flower spent many hours at Flower Grocery at 903 East Fourth. That was owned by his parents, Richard and Dottie, and was across the street from Irving Elementary School. He estimated the store was open from the mid-1950s to the mid-1980s. That was here longer than most. He said it was a small store, probably an oversized garage inside. My parents bought that corner that also had a gas station and a house. And they built onto the store, and at the back of it was the meat department. He said, my folks would deliver to elderly customers, and my dad would even put their purchases away for them. A lot of penny candy and pop was sold before or after school to Irving students. He said his parents dealt with a lot of poorer people, and also his parents were very lovable and became like parents to the kids that came to the store. The store came to kind of a sad ending as it was struck by lightning and burned to the ground. Some signs from the store were saved and are displayed here at the museum.
So this sign is actually at the museum. It's back here in the annex.
Where the fire truck is, if you want to explore sometime and see them. Okay? Are any of the other flower people present? Okay. Jim said he didn't think he'd be able to make it. So, okay. Next one. Jody Lawrence, who volunteers at the museum. She's back there in the yellow sweater. Wasn't born yet when her grandfather, Ori Gentry, had a store at 1010 East 14th. Pardon?
My uncle stored his electrical stuff in there, Rundle Electric,
Oh,
and we've always wondered who had that before.
okay.
Learn something
Now you
today.
know.
Yeah.
Jody said the store was not listed in a Winfield city directory in 1939, but was in 1941. And it was still listed in 1950. But then soon after that, her grandfather took a job at Boeing and closed the store. And that's 14.
That address was 1010 East 14th.
Which you know,
That's right.
oh, which one are we
It's a
talking?
block west of John Street.
Gentry.
Oh, okay, down there, okay, got 1010 East 14, yeah.
Between John and Florence.
Yeah. Okay. So. Okay, moving on. There used to be a grocery store there. It had two different names, College Hill Grocery and what? Walker Grocery, right. Today, well, it sits just north of Grace Methodist Church. And there's,
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts.
The Boy Scouts and the food pantry.
yeah, food pantry, apartments, and then a few other things right there. So, I don't really have a story, but I have something by Bill Blottorf, who now lives in Texas, who wrote a very interesting history of growing up in Winfield that was published in the Red Kelly County Heritage Volume 2 book. And it includes recollections of being a staffer and delivery boy at Walker Grocery beginning in the summer of '54. And a little while later, he delivered groceries for Drum's Food Market. So I'll come back to that if we have time and read what he wrote. It's really interesting. He's got a good memory. Okay.
Someone else has a hand up there.
Oh, back here?
I remember going there when I was in high school,
Uh-huh.
which was brought by their lunch.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Morkel, who was one of our teachers, was running that store because it was a relative of his.
Uh-huh. He did, no? Okay, next. I don't have a story, but this was the Higginbottom Grocery and Market that was located at 1001 Main or 10th and Main on the corner there. And the southeast corner was where the store was located. But,
Southwest.
yeah.
Southwest.
Southwest.
Was it
Where the gallery is.
magic on it, it's better than it was. You can see, like, some of the fruit and vegetables stacked on the display.
Jane, my folks had a friend that was a butcher there after Shinneman's.
Oh.
That was there for quite some time. And he worked there as a young boy too, as a carryout, and he said they used to deliver groceries across the street, upstairs, to what used to be a bordel. He said, I was always told to take the groceries up the stairs, sit them down, knock on the door, but don't you dare go in.
Must have been done on the first
Yeah, but that was Lloyd Emil, and he worked there as a butcher
Oh, how interesting.
back in the 60s.
How interesting.
Yeah, Jane, we have a lot of Higginbottom stuff too.
And you want to show
We've got some Higginbottom receipts here that are from back in the day. We've also got a Higginbottom's calendar from 1957. It's got the 705 East 7th address. It also says 1001 Main, which is the gallery, right? We've got several of these Higgins in the back, and I don't know if you guys have been in the annex before where the fire truck is, but there's also a machine there with a bunch of these tucked in there, and those are the family's receipts that they would have tallied up at the end of the month.
Oh,
Yeah, so we do have that in there if any of you want to go check it out at some point.
great. Interesting. Okay. Then, Beverly Johnson sent me a few of her recollections. She lived here for years. She was a big volunteer and on the board of directors for here at the museum. Anyway, I'll read through some of this. She wanted to be here so much today. She said, our family lived in 3 neighborhoods in Winfield. There were mom and pop stores at each of those locations. We first lived in the 700 block of East 8th, and there was a small grocery store directly north of us in the 700 block of East 7th. It was convenient for Mom as she could easily get groceries there. We only had 1 car at that time, and Dad needed that for work. And then in 1950, they moved to the 1700 block of East 8th, and we made many trips to the Glass Grocery, and that was located where the Winfield Plaza is now. Okay, here's some details that are interesting. There was a skating rink by the grocery store. I have 2 distinct memories of the store. One was the path we walked to get there. From the corner of 8th and Alexander to the store, our path was overgrown with weeds taller than our head. So that wasn't paved yet there. There we go. It seemed like we had to walk through a jungle to get to the store. It could be scary. Another memory is my brother's, plural, avid interest in baseball cards. They made many trips to Glass Grocery to purchase cards. You remember that black sheets of bubble gum, pink, were packaged with the cards. And my brothers tore those wrappers off so quickly they had much less interest in the bubble gum than when they had, seeing what they got. Although she said we chewed more than our share of gum. She said, I vividly remember the time my younger brother, this is hard to believe, climbed out a window to run to Glass Grocery to buy cards. He was in trouble because he was probably only 3 years old. Okay. Whittler's store was on 8th west of Stevenson School. My brother would tear there on his bike to purchase baseball cards. He remembers going there with one of the Gibson twins, Ben or Don, was a clerk. My brother had gone there so many times to buy cards, he was embarrassed to be seen again. He pulled his baseball cap down over his eyes so he wouldn't be recognized. Needless to say, he was.
Yeah.
What store was that?
That was Whittler's on East 8th.
Whittler's.
Whittler's, W-I-D-L-E-R. Okay. And she said we moved to the 1400 block of East 1st in 1958. two grocery stores, Drums and Walkers, serviced that area. I remember that my mother bought my last doll at Drums Grocery. I had seen a beautiful princess doll there, and I got it for Christmas. I remember getting cups of ice cream from the freezer and the flat wooden spoon that came with them. Remember those? Kay Drum was my best friend, and we went to the store and got treats to take on the bus when we went to an out-of-town high school game. Getting free treats was cool. Kay's family also owned the Winfield bus service, and I got many free rides home from the high school. And that was much better than walking home with all our books and our violins. Okay.
What was the address for Drums?
That was at Second and College, right there on the corner.
Okay.
Second and College, was that next to what was the College Inn? A soda fountain place that the St. Johnny's went to?
Yeah, my sister worked there.
Probably right there in that area.
And it was also the bus stop
Yeah.
for college students could get on and come downtown.
Yep.
My older sister and I went to school here at Bryant, and a few times we got to walk up to 9th Street and catch the bus and go up there to on College Street and walk a block to my grandparents' house and stay till my parents could come get us, I guess. We thought that was really fun. We went into that little drugstore or whatever that was right there.
Wasn't it called Mom and Pops? When we were in high school, we used to leave the game at the stadium and go down the hill and down the steps and across the street to Mom and Pops. And that's where you could get a Coke and a snack, hot dogs, french fries, after the game. And then our parents would pick us up there instead of up the top of the hill where the stadium was.
They were probably one of the last soda fountains too, weren't they?
What?
They were probably one of the last soda fountains too, because
I
my
think
sister
so,
was there in
yeah.
high school, and I can remember we'd been in there to pick her up after she got off work, but they'd have the soda fountain there, and they'd be mixing all the sodas. It was really a neat
It
old
was pretty
building.
neat.
That's a good memory.
Jane,
Okay,
I worked at Mom and Pop Cowan's
you did.
in 1957,
Well.
and it was just like it was whenever it was built. And I was responsible to do all kinds of things that you do at a soda fountain. Plus, Larry Hadberg came by every day, and I fixed him a grilled cheese and a Coke. Every afternoon. He brought his books and put them on the fountain, and he stayed there for quite a while. Yeah, I worked there, I
So
liked
when
it.
did they close, do you know?
And the Southwestern boys had come over there because we had machines in the back, pinball machines.
Yeah. They closed in the mid-60s.
Is that when? Okay. I guess I can do that. Okay, do you try to read Bill Bottle's thing? It really is interesting. We have time, I think. Okay. Like I said in that red history book, he wrote about his growing up years here in Winfield, beginning in 1952, and including, let's see, he began working at Walker's Grocery the summer of '54, which is a,
Yeah.
he delivered groceries around the neighborhood at 35 cents an hour, and that was on his bicycle. I got to ride all over the College Hill area of Winfield, exploring streets and alleys and bringing people their groceries. Most deliveries were within a few blocks. Fairly quickly, my job expanded in the summer from just deliveries to sweeping the floor of the entire floor every morning, I guess it was. The task required oil-soaked red sawdust and a push broom. And he said you would sprinkle a dustpan of the red sawdust on the floor and move it down an aisle until it had picked up all the dirt and debris. And this took 20 or 30 minutes to finish. Bill also surveyed the aisles to see what needed stocking. And then he made more deliveries. And then for those who had an account at Walker's Grocery, the ticket was added to their account to be settled later, like we talked about. He said other people paid cash. they didn't all charge. Twice weekly, the IGA semis stopped by, and there were other vendor deliveries, such as twice daily milk and bread deliveries. Twice daily, can you imagine? Okay. Later, Bill purchased a light green 1950 four-door Ford, and taking driver's lessons, driver's training, and began driving for drums. He wrote about other memories of growing up in Winfield and Cali in that book, and you really should look it up. He's fascinating things. He knows what to write.
I hate to tell you this, but we would all recognize that red flaky stuff that they would throw on the floor because that's what the janitor would come and cover up the vomit with. In a coffee can. In a coffee can. Yeah.
These small grocery stores often served as a neighborhood gathering spot. Shoppers and store owners would generally take time to chat and catch up on local news, visit with the shoppers. Sometimes it was a place to meet new folks in the neighborhood. Parents knew it was safe for their children to walk or ride bikes to the store. And sometimes children got their spending money from returning pop bottles to the store. Okay. What caused these small stores to close?
Dylan's. IGA.
The larger stores were able to buy larger quantities of groceries and charge less for them. And like she said, Dylan's is probably one of them. More women held jobs and began shopping at the bigger stores. Also, more women owned cars or rode with someone else or on the city's buses that covered routes around town at that time. Some of the grocery store buildings were remodeled, and they're now home. And the talk.
Okay, you want me to?
Yeah.
My name's Bob King. Some of you I know by seeing me. My dad had King's Grocery. I remember you when you were 5 years old. And I was the first girl I ever held hands with was Ruth Quisenberry. What it was is Wally Barnes had meetings out at the dairy, and Sunrise Dairy, and we went out there to have meetings. My dad had King's Grocery. I'm the last of the 5 brothers. I remember racking pop bottles, and I could tell you stories about that grocery store that I used to go down there. We're talking about baseball cards. I collected baseball cards, but don't arrest me. I used to go down and take my doubles and stick it in the package and refold it and take the new So I have a lot of memories about King's Grocery. I can tell you that this fine young lady over here, the painter, we had to take groceries over to her. Grace Raymond, and I did a lot of deliveries and just helped racking pop bottles and all of that, and the grease on the floor. And of course, if you all knew my mother, she was completely deaf, and she raised 5 boys, and a lot of you knew Raymond, and I was the one they found along the Walnut River in a basket. But it is a building now. I think the 4s own it, but there's a lot of memories of it, and I could tell you stories about Winfield.
I remember the store, but where exactly was it located?
I'm sorry, the store was at 914 Stewart. My mom, we lived at 1010 Stewart.
Okay.
I went to grade school here, and I had to crawl under the fence.
Okay.
Right behind the store.
Okay.
Or right behind the house.
Calling emergency services.
I stepped on my phone. Hey, that's not an emergency. And you know, it's amazing. This guy sitting next to me, I coached him in baseball. That was back in the what? 50s? 60s. And it's amazing how many people I recognize here that, of course, I come back to Winfield for auctions, and I do have a lot of Winfield memorabilia. You know, the guy that was telling me that he used to drive the bus, I have his hat, one of the hats that he had. So Guys, it's been an honor being here, and I just made the last impulse to come, and it's great to see all you fine folks. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I remember King's Grocery, that's here, because she went to school here, and then my mother was a teacher at the high school, junior high, and once in a while she had to come real early, and it was real cold out, she would drop us off at the grocery store, because it's just right over here. And when it was time to come to school, we'd just walk over. I remember that. It's a white building now, and it's a house, a home of somebody, So you should drive by it. Okay, any other comments?
Jay, was the glass grocery store out at the plaza, was it a store first and then the skating rink, or the other way?
Two buildings.
Two buildings? Because those were Strotherfield Barrack buildings.
Here's a guy.
Oh, yeah, he'd know.
Mr. Beacon.
The skating rink was built by Mr. Glass when Strotherfield closed. He brought some barracks in behind the grocery store and made a roller rink out of it.
Yeah.
And then we leased it from him, and we ran it in the winters for 4 winters starting in 1952. And then we moved downtown. But Mr. Glass built the roller rink.
Interesting. Okay. Joanne?
Well, I have a little story. Kenny Glasgow, I don't know how many of you knew him, was our neighbor out in the Rainbow Bend area. And he told the story that the last house on 14th Street before the railroad tracks on the south side, where Barry Patton's Pick-and Parlor has been the last few years, was his aunt's house. And if I recall, she, her daughter was Carol Compton that taught school, and she, I believe, was a widow, and in order to make a living, her house became a little restaurant, and so people that stopped at the train would come over and eat a meal there. But Kenny said she also sold groceries, so that's why I'm sharing that.
Interesting.
And you've got a little dot right there, so I think it's that house where the dot is. But I was telling my brother Jim yesterday, one of my favorite stories that Kenny told about her restaurant was that the troop trains would stop there during World War II. And that people would come in to eat, and one day she noticed that there was a young black soldier who was standing outside. And she said, well, tell him to come in. And the other soldier said, no, he won't. And so his aunt went to the door and she said, you come in here. And so that's my story about that. Grocery store restaurant.
Okay. Where is Amy? You want to do your thing up here now?
Sure. So, all of these things I actually gathered here at the museum, okay? I thought this was cool, pretty cool. These are products that were actually made in Winfield. We've got Winfield Supreme Coffee. We've got Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Winfield. And then we have Winfield Supreme Peas. And the really cool thing about that is I found a Winfield Supreme Delicious Canned Peas recipe book. Right? Is that not the coolest thing you ever saw? So like they made their own peas and then they put little recipe books out so you buy them and make them whatnot. So I thought that was super fantastic. We've also got some Winfield dairy milk. We've got some Winfield Supreme brand turmeric. We've got some Winfield Supreme brand vanilla. Winfield Supreme pure cider vinegar, which is pretty pure at this point, right? And then this one is Winfield Supreme tomato catsup. It's spelled K-A-T-S-U-P. We got some catsup there. Okay? Then these things I kind of gathered around in the annex as well. And I don't know if you guys know this, but you see all these displays around here? A lot of them have drawers like in the back. And so in my spare time, I go look in those drawers and poke around and see what's in there. It's like grandma's attic, right? Except for I work here, so it's extra cool, right? And so that's where I found a lot of these. Like this here, this is the coupon book, where you could, you know, and spend some money in the store, right? This doesn't look like it's ever been used.
Those green stamps?
I'm not sure. It says Adams coupon checks. Wise merchants always specify neater, safer, easier to handle Bristol board coupons.
You would buy a coupon book for maybe $10 or whatever, and it would be in divisions of dollars or quarters or
10 cents,
pence.
5
And
cents.
so when a child, like I remember going to the store, and I would take the coupon book with me, and whoever checked you out would pull out of the coupon book those coupons that went with whatever you
That's
purchased.
cool. This one looks like it's never been used.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Money wasted.
We've got this one. This is from Winfield Farmers Union Co-op Association. Does anyone know who that is?
Farmers Co-op, yeah.
Okay. 6 million. Then this one is Shinola. And is it Shinola? Well, that makes sense because it's shoe polish. Right? So that would go with the name. This one is from Winfield Electric Company, but it's talking about making toast your breakfast food. So apparently, this toaster deal was a big deal back in the day with the grocery store.
It's a fancy toaster.
It was
Get a
fancy.
Good look at it.
Yes.
Yeah, because
And
mom just
this-
held the bread over the burner.
This is that it was brought here in the 1870s. This weighing scale from Illinois, and it's said to have been used to weigh Abraham Lincoln's purchases. Okay. It says it was donated by Miss Clarence Higginbottom, and you all know that the Higginbottoms were the grocery store. So I'm guessing that was used at her store. We do have some Orange Crush here. We've got some Kansas flour. We do have some Baden Roller Mills stuff in the back there too. I didn't pull that out because it's not really grocery store, even though it's flour and it's industry and food. Oh, they were wholesome. Well, there you go. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff in there. Yeah.
I want to share with this bunch, there's a lot of wonderful things downstairs. But also there are 2 cream bottles, cream little jars, that came from Jack Frost. They were called Jack Frost, and they were made by Mr. and Mrs. Bear in the 50s, or made by Mr. Bear, and Mrs. Bear was a home ec teacher at the high school.
Very cool.
But they're down there in the cabinet too.
Very cool. Yeah, so any of this stuff, this will all go back probably in the annex back here. You all know where the fire truck is, right? So that's our mock-up grocery store area. So if you wanted to walk around in there and kind of feel like old-timey grocery store. This was one of their advertisements back in the day. I don't know if you can see this, but it's like a fan with a bunch of little baby girls on it. And this was for C.E. Allen and Son, Modern Grocery. So when was that? Because I didn't hear you talk about C.E. Allen and Son.
I'll look at these 2 lists that I think
Were those babies that send in the famous
was.
I have no idea.
That's not the Dion Quintuple.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
That's
it's 1, 2,
right.
3, 4, 5, 6,
Here it
yeah, there's
is.
6, so they must have been famous, huh?
806 Main.
806 Main, C.E. Allen and Son.
And that was in the 1920s.
1920s.
I don't know how long it lasted.
Well, this looks like it's from the 1920s. And some little kids, I don't know if you can see this, but some little kid went around and scratched on the little kids' faces. Right, like, all right, and that's it. So if you all do want to see any of these artifacts, remember they're in the annex room.
Some of the items that aren't up here, I think some of the grocery store had Santa Fe food products, which was Santa Fe labels and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was also the building down here in Winfield, Diamond Petro, and Rainy Davis. Raymond Davis Wholesales was another grocery supply chain that supplied groceries to the community for the associated grocery stores around
I
there.
wonder if we have any of that back there in the grocery area. We better throw mine. Yeah, they got a pretty good selection of different.
There is one more thing I want to say.
Yes.
If you want to know about the real early history of Winfield, you can't do it now, but if you go down 14th Street, just before you cross the bridge, off to the right, there used to be a dump there. And I dug there, and Mr. Bumgardner dug there, and I think I have some old bottles of the first druggist that was in Winfield.
Ooh, very cool.
And you can't dig there now, but you have to go down about 6 or 8 feet to find bottles of the first dump in Winfield.
Well, and just so you know, if you all do have any old grocery store items that you'd like to donate to the museum, we would be glad to take those items. And then we could display them for everyone to see, and then they don't have to, your kids don't have to get rid of them. You know?
Just the
How
last
many
thing.
of you, just out of curiosity, shopped at one of those Winfield neighborhood stores?
There's a Sacker boy right here, about 55 years ago, probably. About 55 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, the museum has a couple of things that you can get out of the archives. Like, for example, this has a list of all the grocery stores that were here in the 1920s. There's information from the city directories and advertisements. It's long, as you know, there were a lot of grocery stores then. And so it's really interesting if you want to look up one, there's a maybe on here. Then this one is shorter, but it's from the 1950s.
And I have to say, a lady sitting right there on that end was on the board, and they got interested, and she and Conat and Ina put together some of the map that you have a copy of. You put together some of the grocery ads, didn't you, Elaine? So Elaine Brennan did a lot with our old grocery stores because they were totally fascinated.
And I've been to a lot of these.
Okay, well,